Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Race Time Radio. No Joe Jr. tonight. He is down seeing Kevin Hart live in Toronto, the lucky dude. But didn't he miss a cup race today? Man, that was some excitement at the end of that baby. Got to put it out to Ross Chastain in the number one. Met Ross right when he started his truck career at Daytona. And I've been following him all the way through, of course. And good to see Ross Chastain going to join Joey Logano. He's going to join Christopher Bell. And how about our own Napa car? We got Elliott Chase in the chase. It's going to be awesome. Phoenix next weekend. You won't want to miss it. We'll have more on that a little bit later tonight. I got a full field rundown that I can give you if we get enough time. Let me tell you who we got coming on the show tonight. We got a dandy lineup for you. Absolutely off the top. We're going to catch up with a brand new general manager, full-fledged general manager, I might add, Dan MacLeod from the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour out on Canada's East Coast is going to join us. We'll look back on 2022. We'll look forward into 2023. Of course, you got to know early on right now, not a lot of stuff has been totally cemented, but I can well imagine there are some plans, some good ideas that Dan is going to have going forward with his first full year at the controls of one of Canada's hottest tours out on Canada's East Coast. So Dan MacLeod going to join us right off the top. We'll also hear from Anthony Leek. Of course, Anthony, we haven't caught up with him in a long time. It's going to be a little bit different this time. Anthony's going to join us via video. At least we're going to try it. He's going to be our guinea pig this time around. But we'll catch up with Anthony Leek, guaranteed here tonight. And we'll talk to him about the season they had up in Kenora, Lake of the Woods Speedway. And we'll find out how things went at that big, beautiful dirt track. And, again, have a look into the future and find out what we can look forward to in 2022. Then we're going to go off to Canada's West Coast. We're going to grab Neil Schneider. And Neil is the marketing director and business development for Sutherland Automotive Speedway. So we'll check in with the guys at Auto Clearing. It used to be Auto Clearing. My mouth keeps going there, but it is Sutherland Automotive Speedway. We'll catch up with Neil on the show tonight. Alex Tagliani has been doing some racing this weekend. He did Canada real proud, finished second in the race. We'll catch up with Tags here tonight in hour number 2, right off the top. And look at this. I got my Penticton sweater on. For good reason. We got Trevor coming on the show. Trevor Seibert, he is the promoter, one of the promoters at Penticton Speedway. They did some paving, some more paving. They had a little bump down in turn 1 and 2, I believe, and Trevor said that ain't going to do no more. They went out there and they ripped all that out, repaved it all, so we'll check in with Trevor tonight, and we'll find out how the repave is coming along down in turn number 1 and 2. But what do you say we get to the hotline and welcome in the general manager of the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour? His name is Dan MacLeod. He joins us now. Dan, my friend, how are you?
Not too bad, Joe. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, my friend. Thanks so much for the time here tonight on Race Time Radio. Genuinely appreciate it. How'd the weekend go? Did you happen to catch that cup race today?
I certainly did. That would be a tough one for any track to duplicate. So,
you wonder how he come up with that in his mind, Ross. He, coming into turn 3 and just let that car rip and hang it on the wall.
I've got no idea, but it's one they'll talk about for a long time to come.
Well, you got to know it, right? In the highlight reel, I can tell you the number 1 highlight now just moved to Ross Chastain. I did see some stuff, Dan, on Twitter, where I want to say it was Kyle Larson. He took exception to what Ross did. Said, no, he said that's actually makes us, how did he put it? I'm trying to remember the word he used. Disgusting was the word he used.
Oh, okay. Maybe Carson or maybe Kyle Larson was just concerned because he didn't think about that himself. So.
Yeah, many of those drivers would be doing exactly the same thing, Dan, my man. Hey, how did 2022 go? I know you were there, kind of learning the role. Ken Cunning was still there. Did you take over more throughout the course of the season, or did you stay in the back light and let?
No, I was kind of hoping more to stay in the background for this first season.
Yeah.
Ken had some minor health issues, which didn't allow him to get to the tracks away from Scotia Speedway. So I did sort of like step up on those away races and do the best I could. There's a strong team of people that make my job a lot easier. If it's a success, they've made me look good. So at the end of the day, I probably got 2 or 3 years of experience in the first season. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. You would have been put into the deep end in a hurry, Dan, but that's kind of cool. You used to come at this series. You're familiar with all the guys, and all the guys are pretty familiar with you, of course, coming over the fence from CAT, which was a very strong part of the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour. So it wasn't like you were stepping in and they were going, hey, who's this guy?
No, I've probably been involved at some level for probably at least the last 25 or 30 years. Started originally when we took on the sponsorship of Scott Fraser back in, I think, probably 1994, and we were with Scott until 2002, 2004, prior to his death. And then subsequent to that, we were involved with the Atlantic Cat 250 race, which was probably the largest race at Scotia Speedway at that time.
Oh, guaranteed, guaranteed.
So, more than familiar with the drivers and the tour itself. Just a different perspective. In the past, I was a fan and a sponsor. Now I'm on the other side of the fence in the pit. So.
Yeah, on the other side. And, man, the teams that you're working with are some very high caliber, super late model teams. They just don't get any tougher. Dan, you'd be able to go anywhere in the country and fill the role now. What's it like dealing with these guys?
One thing I've always had a great admiration for is the degree or the amount of effort and resources that these teams put into their race programs. That those resources come in the forms of money, time, commitment by crew members, commitment by their families to allow them to do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to any of the pro stock races in the last number of years, and you see the level and the caliber caliber that exists now, these fellows are well positioned to run most series in the Northeast. And we've got fellows now that Cole Butcher, Nicholas Donald, they run down in some of those series in the U.S. and they do very well. So I think the Pro Stock Tour in the East Coast here has really been an area where a lot of drivers have honed their skills. And if you look at on time trials how close those times are in the top 10, they could probably stand up against most places in North America for short track racing for sure.
Well, I agree. Cole Butcher just today, actually, in the All-American 400. Sorry, it was yesterday. It wasn't today. It was scheduled for today, and they actually moved it ahead, and they ran the race yesterday. Cole ended up, he was right up at the front. He did have trouble. I don't know what happened, but at the end of the race, Cole said, car number 3, that's wrecked, but we'll get it fixed, and we'll be ready for the Derby. I did reach out to Cole to hopefully try and get him tonight, but he could be on a flight on his way home.
Could be, Could be flying back home now. But so, and Cole is one of those drivers who's evolved from Cole used to race motocross, and then he started in the Bandolero cars, legend cars, and then transitioned into the Pro Stocks, which has tended to be a very normal transition of drivers as they come up through the different divisions. And it seems as though with the Bandoleros, they develop that car control, and I think when they get into Legends, they get a feel for the weight to horsepower that's in in the Legends, which is very close to Pro Stock. So that's what makes, I think, for such a big training ground for these young drivers that come up too. They learn a lot of the basics on the way too. So helps them.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're with Dan MacLeod. He's the general manager of the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour. We heard from the champion this year. I believe we had every feature winner on throughout the course of the year from Canada's East Coast. The tracks that these guys run against are all the top tracks out on the East Coast, and man, did they do a good job. Congratulations again to the 99 of Craig Slonwhite, the champion. He repeated this year. He's been the champion the last couple of years. Dan, did you find you got to rule these guys with an iron fist, or do you find that, you can talk some sense into them after they get the helmet off?
Well, it just all depends whether the helmet's on or the helmet's off. So, and in a lot of cases, I think if you look at the driver, racing is a very passionate sport. I find, well, put it this way, I guess my approach is I want to gain their respect and have them know that what my goals are is that we'll have a level playing field. It'll be fair, we'll be consistent, and we'll be reasonable, and we just ask the same in return. At the end of the day, we're trying to put on a product to the fans, and the fans do deserve to have the best product that's available out there, and that's what my goal is. And I think, as time goes on, we'll find ways to tweak a lot of the race programs, some of the racing. We've already met internally our tech and rate control team. Mm-hmm. We've already met once already to review last year and what's going to take place next year. We'll be ready to set a schedule late November, early December. And so there'll be a lot of, I think, interesting things are going to come out of these meetings and what we're going to announce for next year. Nothing's etched in stone yet, but it's like anything else. We have to evolve with the times. And I've said quite often this year that, the racers keep advancing and evolving, and the tour has to ensure that we evolve with them. So I'm really looking forward to this year. I think there's a lot of excitement amongst us internally as to what's going to take place and what we're going to be able to announce to the drivers when we get together later in the year. So.
Excellent. I turned the wrong button on. I had it off to cough. And Dan, the season's going to come quickly. You guys did try some stuff this year. Got to hand it to you. I believe it was not the Cat 250, but the Summer Clash 250. There was some different, segments, if you will, when the guys could pit, when they didn't. Man, those teams all got mixed up. I don't think they genuinely listened in that drivers' meeting, or they would have had it kind of figured out.
Well, we tried something a little bit different, and it's basically called control cautions. The use of control cautions is quite predominant in the U.S. And I think at the end of the day, I certainly wouldn't put the blame with the drivers. I think they wanted us to try some different things and some new things. We tried it. It works. It works well in the U.S. We tried it first. Our first attempt up here was at the Summer Clash 250, which used to be the Atlantic Cat race, and we didn't have too much trouble with scoring, but I think the communications and the execution probably fell short on our end. What really, I think, compounded the issues was that we had a lot of cautions in that race.
Oh, okay?
Yeah. So utilizing the control cautions with that many cautions that were taking place really extended it out. Ironically, I said we felt terrible for the fans and the participants, but ironically, we did tend to get a fair bit of support of the drivers for having tried something different and not to give up on it just because it didn't work the first time.
Right.
So.
Right. So.
Although we learn more from our failures than we do our successes, so hopefully that'll hold some good stead for the next attempt that we make at something a little bit different.
Hey, just proves the realities, right? We're human. And, if you're going to break new ground, you're going to make mistakes. I believe it was, I love watching the Eagles and the history of the Eagles. And I think back to Glenn Fry in that Eagle show. He said to Bob Seger, and that was one of the first guys Glenn met. And he said, Bob Seger said, in order for you guys to move ahead, you're going to have to write your own songs. And he says, well, what happens if I write a bad song? And Bob says, so don't worry about it. You're going to write bad songs. But eventually you're going to write a good song and you'll figure out how. And I don't think anything's different for us, right? Even us here at Racetime Radio. We're trying different things. We're trying to move it along. Man, I'll tell you what, when I got into this radio deal, I never expected to have my mug anywhere close to a camera. And now I've got one at the pretty well the tip of my nose. So things do advance and they do, sort of move down the road. And that's how we all get a little bit bigger, a little bit better. What is the plan? Do you got any plans you can share with us for 2022? Or is this all stuff that you got to hold for the drivers' meeting?
It's all stuff that we're actually working on right now. We're looking at our schedule. We're looking at our packages. We're also looking at how we can take and inject a little different race programs into any specific race. As I said before, even though the attempt at the control caution didn't materialize or work out the way that they wanted,
right?
There are some variations that we can look at. We can maybe try them again. This time, hopefully, the execution will be better on our part. But it was a steep learning. The control cautions were a steep learning curve for everybody. But I do believe that type of a format is something that all the drivers are looking for. And because, as I said before, we did get a lot of feedback from drivers saying, great, and thanks for the apology for the long race. However, the fact that you're prepared and willing to try something different, they appreciated that.
Yeah, and Dan,
in terms of next year, like I said, it's early on yet. We just finished our season. Right. Our banquet this coming Saturday night. Our first drivers' meeting should be mid-November, and that's where things will really start to gel a little bit for us. So.
Yeah, they'll start to take shape, no doubt. Dan, they are in good hands from what I could see this year, like amazing hands. If there's any way, shape or form, let's try and get Racetime Radio back out there to call the races. I can tell you there was a lot of fans that I heard from throughout the course of the year. You're going east. And we did for the IWK 250 and thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved the series. There's no doubt there. And wish you nothing but success. And if there's anything that we can do, Dan, for you, we're here. We're here.
No, I certainly appreciate that, Joe. And as I said, I knew you were down for the IWK 250 and didn't get a chance to speak with you. Yeah. However, we look forward to seeing you down here anytime you want to make the trip. So.
She's going to be good. It'll be a good 2023. I can guarantee that, Dan.
Yeah, no question. So
you betcha.
We'll get all the residue of the COVID-19 behind us, and I think we'll all be in better shape.
Yes, I do believe so. Bud, you be well, and I look forward to catching up with you either at the end of November after the meetings are done, maybe into December by the time you get everything done. But as soon as you do, I'll be watching, I'll be calling, and trying to get you back on the show, and we'll lay it all out for those fans right across Canada.
Okay. Joe, I appreciate that. Thanks very much.
You betcha. That is Dan MacLeod. He is the general manager of the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour, and man, what a tour out there. This is going to be different. I can guarantee you that with Dan at the top. Dan is a very smart businessman. Once worked with Mr. Fraser. Come on. Scotty was the man behind the wheel. Untouchable out there. Won himself like 5 IWK 250s. Dan was part of that. So he understands what's going on in behind the scenes, and that's half the battle right there. And you heard him allude to it. It's got to have everything for the fan. The sponsors, like there's a lot of different avenues that you got to look at. Can't look at this game one way. If you do, you're going to get left in the dust. You got to look at it from all perspectives. Dan MacLeod's that kind of guy. You're going to see the proof in it when he gets these meetings rolling and gets things underway. But we are going to hit a break. When we come back, we're going to try something totally different here on Racetime Radio. You're not going to see it on SiriusXM. You're definitely going to hear it, though, on SiriusXM Channel 167. But also, try and join us on our new YouTube page. We do stream the show live there as well. The name, RaceTimeRadioTV. Type that into YouTube and presto, you're going to be able to get us. And you won't have to just look at my mug. We'll be looking at Anthony, Leek, and me at the same time, no doubt. We're going to try it anyway on the other side of the break. Stay with us. We will be back.
Come on, wake up, honey. I got a little money coming my way. We gotta get out of here. And you find me some cigarettes, little whiskey and beer.
From coast to coast, you're listening to Canada Talks.
Now, a flashback in Canadian music history. Here's Eric Alper.
Tom Cochrane's most famous song, Life is a Highway, was a #1 hit in Canada, and it hit the top 10 in the Billboard charts back in 1992. It was written after Tom's famine relief work overseas took place. He was so taken with what was happening there, he wrote it as a pick-me-up to himself after watching the devastation. That's why he mentioned places in the song like Khyber Pass, along with his hometown of Vancouver.
Canadian sports trivia. Here's Joe Thistle.
During the 2000 NBA All-Star festivities, the Toronto Raptors' Vince Carter exploded to win the dunk contest with a series of moves including a through-the-leg slam. Carter's air show was a defining moment for basketball in Canada, putting the Raptors and the entire country on the map. A championship now in the books, Canada has become a hotbed for NBA talent, and it was Vince Carter flying through the air that started it all.
Canadian sports trivia.
Even though Napa is a nationally known name, nearly all of our stores are built from the ground up by local owners and families. People you might call neighbors will be here, there, and everywhere.
You will.
Doing what neighbors do to keep their communities moving forward. You stop by a Napa Auto Parts store, you can count on Napa know-how.
Tonight's Race Time Radio is brought to you by Napa Auto Parts Stores, New Glasgow, Antigonish, and Port Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia. You can count on Napa know-how. AP Race Fuels, the worldwide leader in race fuel technology.
Now, a flashback in Canadian music history. Here's Eric Alper.
Rush holds a special place in our hearts and in the record books. They've sold more than 40 million copies around the world. They have a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Officers of the Order of Canada. And they've released 24 gold records and 14 platinum albums, placing them 5th for the most consecutive gold or platinum studio albums by any rock band.
From the high banks of Daytona, we cover it all. Ooh, that's gonna leave a mark. And now, back to the Joes.
Hey, shake and bake, Cal! Woo! Shake and bake!
Here on Race Time Radio.
And welcome back, everybody, to Race Time Radio. I'm hoping Anthony Leek can hear me on the other end, and let's hope we can hear from Anthony. Anthony, welcome to Race Time Radio. How you doing, bud?
Doing great. Great to be here.
We got you, and you can hear us. You can't get any better than that. Anthony Leek is the promoter, operator of Lake of the Woods Speedway up in Kenora, Ontario. Beautiful dirt track that these guys built just a couple of years ago. How did 2022 go without a pandemic, I might add, bud?
It was good. It was our 5th year of racing, and we just had our 5th anniversary of our first event last week, and it was good. It was a really rough spring. We had lots of snow, and it was great for the snow machine racing. In February, we run a vintage twin and a 100-lap enduro on the track. But then it just rained and it rained and it rained and it rained all the way till the middle of June. And by the time we could actually get on the racetrack, the weeds were growing. So yeah, it was a rough spring, but once we got going, it was good. We had some things with the racetrack that we wanted to get better with. We do run, late afternoon racing. And we came up with some new farming tools that made a huge difference, and the track just got better and better. So I'm actually very excited for 2023 because I think we finally figured something out that's going to make this track racier than it's ever been. And for fans, it was good. You know, we've been kind of experimenting between Fridays and Sundays, and we've noticed that the Sundays have been more successful. You know, we are in Lake Country here on Lake of the Woods. And Friday night, sometimes, you know, people just want to go to the cabin and get away from work and get away from the city. So we're going to be sticking with full Sundays next year.
Something about lighting that quick at the campfire and having yourself a couple of Frosties and downloading from the week. And then by the time you get to Sunday, hey, that's good race day. That's when NASCAR puts the big stuff on, is Sunday. So you got to learn from that as well. And especially cutting new cloth, right? You guys are picking your way through.
Yeah, it's, I think, you know, we have a lot of out-of-towners, too, that drive, you know, they drive a couple hours to get there. And for some people, they can take the Friday off, and there's other people who can get off a little early. But for the majority of those people from out of town, it's really tight. It's really tight for time. You know, we were doing our Friday nights. We're racing at 7:30. And if you're driving 2 hours, you want to leave by 4:30 just to make it. And there's lots of people that work till 5. It's been really good locally. We've been slowly increasing more and more local drivers, which I think helps a lot, because if the weather's not so good, then you still have a good race if things don't turn out so well for the traveling side of things. So we're going to continue to grow that side of it. The 4-cylinder class has been really good. You know, we in 2019, when we started, we did a couple races in 2018, but in 2019, when we started running weekly stuff, you know, we had 2 or 3 4-cylinders racing.
Right.
This year we averaged 10.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's up.
So it's great in 3 years, right? To see that kind of shift. And a lot of them are local and some committed out of towners on a weekly basis. And some of those drivers are now moving into our pure stock class or street stock class for 2023 that are local. So, and then they're selling their cars to local people that want to get into it. So it's kind of going according to plan up to this point. I hope that continues long term.
Well, in the cars, whereabouts are you getting them from? Because there's no doubt Kenora is at the very edge of Ontario. You got to go a long way to get to Kenora Speedway. If you got a dirt car this weekend, you got a long drive ahead of you if you're going to go drive at Lake of the Woods. Where do you draw from?
So I'm originally from Emo Speedway. If people who've listened to me be interviewed through you before.
Yeah.
It's about 180 kilometers south of here. So Emo's on the border of Minnesota, and Kenora's almost exactly straight north, maybe a little bit to the west by 10, 15 kilometers. So we draw from there a little bit. On the bigger shows, we draw modifieds from there when we run our Wissota modifieds. And then we have some part-timers that come from there. Historically, Emo hasn't had a huge amount of travelers, but we do get a few here or there. But for consistency, it's been from Winnipeg. So Winnipeg is about 200 kilometers west of Kenora.
Right.
It's 40 minutes to the border, about 44 kilometers to the border. And then Winnipeg's another 160 or so kilometers from there. And we do have like Brandon Rehill, who won our track championship the last 2 years. He's from St. Andrews, which is northeast of Winnipeg. And he ran every week for the last couple of years. Edward Bell. And then we have Patrick Davis from Sioux Lookout, who started racing when the track was built here. So yeah, it's been and we get Thunder Bay people every once in a while, but that's a good 5-hour drive and an hour change as well, because we're on Central Standard Time here while in the same province. And so we pick up people from all over the place, but the real good indicator is the growth of the local. You know, when we first started working on building at this track, there was maybe 2 cars locally here, if any.
Yeah.
And now we're probably 18 to 20.
Yeah. And it takes time. There's no doubt. You want to see struggles. You come out to some of the established speedways that have been in business like 50 years or better. And they're lucky. I know one track, I took a look in the pits in July. And, yeah, it was a regular night of racing, so to speak. Nothing special coming through. 27 cars in the pits. 27, 5 divisions. Man, I'm telling you, the struggles that, that the industry faces, you guys are going even one step further than that with a brand new build.
Yeah, and what we tried to do with when looking at building the track and how we would focus on the classes, one of the formulas that worked really well in emo is having 3 classes. We can bring in a special event. When I did super stocks and we did super trucks in the past, it was kind of cool. You'd get 14, 15, 16 of them, and you put on this special show and you had a better crowd and everything. But, there was always push for I think we ran 4 classes at one point when we had mini sprints in the early 2000s, but that class was kind of dwindling and we knew that there needed to be a replacement of some sort. There's a lot of people who say 3-4 classes makes it into a good program, a couple hours, 2.5 at the most, but it also allows people to get into the sport and pick something. One of the, I think the issues that happened years ago is that everyone wanted to get into a different type of car. And I don't know why that happened, but there's a lot of tracks that might only had 2-3 classes in the 80s. And by the mid to late 1990s, they had 5-6 classes, right?
Oh yeah.
And
there's 17 of them now in Ontario.
Yeah.
17 classes. And it's tough. It's tough. There's 695 racers. Why, if they would have left it at 3 or 4 divisions, then, how many cars would you have? You'd have a lot in each one, but it isn't that way. It's not that way.
No.
They were trying to evolve, so I get it because I was part of it.
And I think that on top of that, you make a good point there, but I think that there was a lot of assumption on that, eternal growth. And by adding classes, you would hope that people would fill in the classes that currently exist, and you just keep growing. And I think that it's just a mistake. It was a mistake. I mean, when you're in the moment, it made sense because you had so much that people wanted to, instead of one class where there's 40 cars, well, you could have 2 classes where there's 20, 25 in each. So everyone has a chance to run from the qualifying event all the way to the feature, right?
Not sending anybody home.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then when it starts to shrink, when the driver base starts to shrink and everything, well, now it doesn't look so good to have 5 or 6 classes because now you only have 10 cars in each class.
Yeah.
But
still
hindsight's
got a lot of
20/20,
cars
right?
there. Yep. It sure is. It sure is. We are with Anthony Leek. He's the promoter. Lake of the Woods Speedway up in Kenora, Ontario. New build just a couple of years ago. Dirt track. Beautiful little dirt track. I've seen the photos. You guys have done an amazing job. When it comes time for rules, and that's probably the stage you're at right now, is formulating the rules. Do you touch them? Do you leave them alone? Are you aligned with the Wissota Modifieds if you got a modified class? Or are you aligning yourself with somebody to try and gain more cars that way? Or what do you got happening there?
So when you're starting a new track and you have other established tracks, one of the things we looked at is that we're going to have to stick with where we want to sanction. So when we pick our classes, we looked at, what's entry level, what's accessible in terms of cost, in terms of total cars. So we went with the 4 cylinders as an entry level, and then the pure stocks, which is the more traditional V8 full body stock car, and then the Midwest Modifieds. The Midwest Modifieds is the biggest class in Wissota. Winnipeg runs them, Thunder Bay runs them, Emo runs them, and most of the tracks on the border.
Is that the one that Mike runs? Mike Balkin, Amber Balkin's dad?
No, he runs a late model.
Oh,
so
okay.
Mike runs a late model.
Okay.
If you're thinking Midwest Mod up here, we usually think of people like Austin Hunter out of Winnipeg.
Is that what Steve Arpin come out of?
Steve came out of a modified because he started getting into racing in the late 90s. He started in a mini sprint and then went to a modified, but the Midwest Modifieds didn't become a class in Wissota until about 2000 and in Emo in 2004.
Gotcha.
Although his father did run a Midwest mod in 2004 to 2007 in Emo when the class came into existence. And really, I think we've talked about it before, the difference between what kind of happened in Wissota was that the modifieds were getting more and more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea was to create a more cost-effective modified that had an older modified chassis with a more limited engine.
Crate engine or something. Yeah.
Kind of how limited late models work today for crate late models.
Yep. Well, they're gone now. They're gone now. We haven't got any.
Oh.
Which is a real shame. I look at Sunset Speedway 4 years ago. They had, I want to say, 34 limited late models running under the NASCAR banner. It was a dogfight. It was an excellent show. And I do not know to this day what happened, other than they changed the rules, and it got more expensive. So I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I do believe they were pushing them more towards a a Pro Light model to try and boost that end. And it blew up. I know it did at Sauble Beach. It definitely blew up. But I digress. When we get to, are you at the stage now where you're setting the rules, and do they go in stone?
So originally, the 4 cylinders we got from Winnipeg's rule package, because we knew we would have to draw from travelers, we wanted to make sure that we aligned as best we could. And we knew we had a lot of interest in the pure stock thing. And you know, dirt and asphalt, you know, there's quite a bit of differences in terms of how rules work and how some of the racing works even in of itself. So it's hard to do like a one-to-one comparison on things, because limited late models have actually been somewhat successful in a lot of the dirt tracks in Minnesota.
Right.
But you know, we kind of work with the drivers. I try to work with Winnipeg in the past on having a rule package that's consistent. And of course, Emo's been interested in it lately. Thunder Bay runs our rule package, which is the same as Winnipeg.
Cool.
But for the pure stocks, it was really, we were unsanctioned, and we tried looking at sanctioning with WISSOTA and possibly changing engine packages. But to go from a 350 to 305 just didn't make sense. So WISSOTA has worked with us really hard at allowing us to create what we call the Northern Pure Stock WISSOTA region, where our cars can't race in the WISSOTA national system, but theirs can run here, and we can continue to run a parallel rule package of what we have or what a WISSOTA car might want to run. I think that's going to change and shift, and we might end up as a WISSOTA street stock eventually. I think just the way for reliability and availability of parts, it's inevitable that these older pure stock chassis and stuff are going to have to, and parts are going to have to move to a more standardized system, and we might be full WISSOTA street stock in 3 to 5 years. But really, it's working with the other racetracks, trying to find a way that works with what currently exists and where we're trending to, and just trying to have a plan long term in order to keep the sustainability of the classes without getting it spiraling out of control as well. So it's a difficult thing to do, but we try not to change too much unless we have to.
Well, it's a balancing act. It always is. The promoters, being you, man, you guys got your work cut out, because you got to try and please the race base. It's not a democratic society. You can't just lay it out and say, okay, boys, we're going to vote on one thing. If you do it, you're done. So you can't do that. You got to sort of go by the dictatorship. But every single decision you make has to include money, fans, racers, pit gate. It all goes on and on. So every decision you make has to affect those. And if you're affecting one more than the other, man, it's time that you got to hold up and, you know, hold the line. And it's a tough thing to do. I did it for 14 years. And I did it with some of the best and craftiest racers that you can imagine back in the day. And I loved it. I loved it. But I'll tell you what, if your feet aren't, if your heart isn't bouncing out of your chest when your feet hit the ground in the morning, you're not making the right choices. You got to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's so many plates on the table at the end of the day, and you try to juggle it all, and everyone has a perspective, whether you're a fan or you know, our operation is run by volunteers, and you know, they all want to pitch in terms of how they can make it better, which is great. And I always try to have an open door, communicative relationship with drivers and sponsors and fans and volunteers alike to try to do our best, you know. And we can't make everybody happy. That's just the reality of it. But we try to at least give opportunity for people to speak when they like to. You know, Terry Volz, who was executive director and involved in WISSOTA for a lot of years, he says, just because we don't decide upon what you're saying doesn't mean we didn't listen.
Yep.
And I think that's really important that, you know what, the decision might not always go your way, but as long as we can approach from the perspective that at least we'd listen to what you had to say and try to incorporate it in some way. If we can't, we can't, but we will do our best to try to listen and make it work. And sometimes it works that way. Sometimes it doesn't, just like out on the racetrack, right? Sometimes you win them, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes you don't. Yeah. If you just ask the 14 car, he wanted that race to be 8 laps less today. And he could have won it, or maybe he could have tried to Ross Chastain, and he could have won it. But anyway, dynamite show today. That was one of the better NASCAR races I've watched in a long time.
I can't believe that. I can't believe
it either, and I don't think anybody else can. But tell you what, there's going to be some controversy over that baby. You'll want to tune into SiriusXM NASCAR Radio tomorrow. I wouldn't want to be... I wouldn't want to be Dave. He's going to field a billion calls and it's going to be incredible. But, Anthony, the reason why all this even developed is I started to see your schedule being posted already. Is that somewhat of a firm schedule, or what are you thinking there?
It's relatively firm. The racetracks don't change a whole significant amount on each year. I think the only thing that might change is the type of event we might have in terms of classes. But even in my time in EMO, unless you're popping in a special event here or there, your schedule's pretty set. None of the tracks here. I mean, once you go stateside, there's all sorts of dates. But on the Canadian side, Thunder Bay's Wednesdays, Emo Saturdays. We've been Friday and Sundays, and Winnipeg's on Thursdays. And when Morden used to run, they were Sundays, but they're 4 hours away from us. So there's a lot of separation between the tracks, and there's drivers in each of those regions. So no one's really overstepping anybody. I try to work well with the other racetracks, and overall that's been good with most of the tracks here.
Yeah.
I know the people from EMO, and I used to work with them when I was in EMO. So we talk about how we want to schedule where they're going to take a night off, and we run a 2-day show, or they might run the Friday, Saturday, because we used to run the Fridays and we went to Sunday, so that people who are traveling home, if they're going through the Kenora Way to get to Winnipeg or whatever, they have another show to go back to on their way. Instead of just one show, 8-hour round trip, they can do 2 shows in an 8-hour round trip, right? Because people want to race. And so to put the schedule together, there's a couple reasons. Number one, because of that, because we kind of have an idea what we're doing after 5 years of scheduling and working with the other racetracks, but also because with SOTA, we submit our sanctioning contract around this time of the year, and we have to submit at least a tentative one of our start and end dates. So if you know what your start date of the season is going to be, and you kind of know what your end date is going to be based on the sanctioning body, well, it's pretty easy to fill in the rest of the gaps, right? So that's what makes it pretty easy to do. Yeah.
Finally, tonight, anybody that's listening that is south of Kenora and they have a dirt car, and they're thinking, man, I'm going to go to Winnipeg, or I'm going to be heading out west. Maybe I could take my car and stop on my holidays at Kenora and jump into a race, have a look at the schedule. What are the chances they're going to be able to fit? What are the chances they'd be able to jump into a race?
Well, it depends on what they're driving. We do get people that are wondering, if the car that they have, especially like people from Alberta and stuff, who say, like how close, if I'm IMCA sport mod, what changes do I have to make?
Right.
So we'll let drivers know ahead of time. I mean, what we run in dirt track here is slightly different than what's run in dirt track in Southern Ontario, partly because of the sanctioning bodies as well as local rule packages. So, if they're interested, or they look at the photos from the website and they go, that kind of looks like my car,
right?
Send me the rule package and we'll see what we can do. And I can work with our sanctioning body tech guy at WSOTA there, Bill, and see if we can make it work. And if it's a one-off, even just to turn some hot laps or something like that, just to give it a shot to turn some laps, or we can run a bit of a race maybe with 5 other cars as part of a show and just see how they'd match up. So, we can make it work on a local level if there's a few guys, and they could maybe take at the back end of hot laps or an extra little exhibition race at the end of the show. Like, we'll make it work if someone hauls their car up this way.
That's cool. And I guess pack lead. They've always got lead in their race shops. Just if you're going to go, pack some lead. You may not need it, but if you got it, and it could get you into a race that pays a couple of bucks on your holidays, you could experience another dirt track. You could have a lot of fun. But, Anthony, this has been great catching up with you. I know through the off-season, buddy, we're going to get together again and get an update and see how everything cements in for you guys. You're doing a great job, man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Great seeing you here tonight, too. And you did great. Look at the video worked.
Yeah, I like, sometimes it's nice to be the hamster in this whole deal.
Well, you did great. That's Anthony Leek. You can check him out. Lake of the Woods Speedway, of course, and Kenora Speedway. Google it. Check it out. You can get up there and see Anthony and maybe get your car into one of the shows. Do it. If you're heading west, you might as well take your race car. You're almost all the way out to the west when you hit Kenora, the end of Ontario. If you haven't done the drive, trust me, it's a long one, but it's well worth the trip. We're going to hit a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go a little further west than Anthony Leek. We're going to go to Saskatoon. We're going to grab ourselves Neil Schneider, and he's going to join us all live next here on Racetime Radio. We will be back. It's time to get back to the racetracks. For over 30 years, Quick Fire Starters have fueled this sport on and off the track, making lighting your campfire as easy as 1, 2, 3. There's no need for kindling or paper. Just pop your Quick Fire Starter in the pit, add your wood, and presto, you're a pro. Quick Fire Starters. No harmful chemicals, and guaranteed to light your fire every time. Quick Fire Starters, the world's best fire starter.
Rev TV, your motorsports and automotive destination. Watch live races from around the world and right here at home, from 2 wheels to 4 and so much more. Rev TV is your source for motorsports. Rev TV features exclusive race series, up-to-date news coverage, documentaries, how-to programs, and adrenaline-filled lifestyle programs 24/7. Go green with Rev TV. Contact your TV provider to order.
Tonight's Racetime Radio is fueled by AP Race Fuels, the worldwide leader in race fuel technology.
If you're a Springsteen fan, you just found the promised land. Hear rare interviews and performances. Live concerts.
Is there anybody alive out there?
Celebrity guest DJs.
This is Rob Lowe. Hey, baby, it's Little Steven here.
And more exclusives when listening to Bruce Springsteen's channel.
Welcome, Bruce Springsteen, to E Street Radio, your home away from home. Great to be here.
E Street Radio, SiriusXM Channel 20.
Canadian sports trivia. Here's Joe Thistle.
During the 2000 NBA All-Star festivities, the Toronto Raptors' Vince Carter exploded to win the dunk contest with a series of moves including a through-the-leg slam. Carter's air show was a defining moment for basketball in Canada, putting the Raptors and the entire country on the map. A championship now in the books, Canada has become a hotbed for NBA talent, and it was Vince Carter flying through the air that started it all.
Canadian sports trivia.
Men, morning men.
Hi, I'm Evan Cohen.
And I'm Mike Babchak.
We were given 30 seconds to describe our show, Morning Men, on Mad Dog Sports Radio. So I'll ask you some questions, and you give me the answers. What do we do for fun?
You go to the diner with your family. Me, I drink and forget I have a family.
Biggest crush?
You, Tom Brady. Me, anyone in yoga pants.
What do we want to do more of?
You, talk about what happened the night before in the world of sports. Me, I would like to do more of my wife. I think we just ran out of time.
Morning Men, 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Mad Dog Sports Radio, SiriusXM 82, and the SiriusXM app.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
Welcome back.
Racetime Radio.
I think I like it too. I think I like it too.
Oh, I always like it. That's Joey Vinegar. Check him out. Get to Joey Vinegar. You can try that on YouTube. Try it on Google. Just Google it. Joey Vinegar, and have a listen to his tunes. Man, the guy's got it on. And he's part of Racetime Radio. Let's get back to the hotline, shall we? And let's welcome in from Saskatoon, Sutherland Automotive Speedway, the guy with his hands on the controls of development, marketing. We got Neil Schneider with us. What's going on there, Neil, man?
Hey, good evening. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing real good. If I could get rid of this cough, I'd be doing even better, buddy. But I digress. How are things out at Sutherland Automotive Speedway?
Well, right now we're just coming off probably one of our largest seasons we had, one of our best seasons we had in a number of years. Once everything got rolling, it seemed probably about midsummer. It just took off, and we had a great turnout for fans. We had our inaugural Bridge City 200 event this year.
Mm-hmm.
$10,000 to win. That went off there without a hitch. We had over 20 cars, which was great. And we've already announced, 2023, August 12th will be the second annual and Bridge City 200. So.
I had guys, Neil, across this country asking me, hey, Joe, who's got a special? Who's got a special? I got weeks off, or I got a day off, or I'm not running that series anymore. Where do I pick up a special? And I did. I pointed to the Bridge City 200. Of course, right at the beginning of the year, we had the Rattler 300 all the way out in BC, which another one that paid huge money. And it just, you guys did a great job at that Bridge City 200. I actually got to Sutherland Automotive Speedway for the RS1 Cup Series race. Finally got a chance to see you and Rich and all the guys. Hadn't seen everybody in years, but I'll tell you what, that's a beautiful speedway you guys have got.
You know, it's one of the only volunteer-run member facilities around, right? So it's all volunteer hours put into this thing. We've been around. We celebrated our 60th anniversary this year, so we actually had at the Bridge City 200 was our reunion race where we had past members, and we had guys that originally started this whole circus that we have here in Saskatoon, right? But you know, they were there, and it was great to see all the old faces, all the old members, past members. It was great.
Did Al make it out?
Yeah, Al was out. We actually donated. We actually named a grandstand after him.
Did you?
So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, and very, very good, well earned, I would say.
Well, yeah, he's. I'm sure he sold enough 50/50s to help pay for the banner and everything else.
Oh yeah. So with the Bridge City 200, that is the marquee event for the Speedway. I know you get the NASCAR Pinty Series out there. That's another big one. But for pro late model style racing, super late models, if you will, it's the Bridge City 200 that would, sort of get the attention of everybody across the country. What do you do for rules on that one?
They kind of looked after before in the past. They kind of looked at the Chicasa system they had. But then last year they kind of switched it up, and it was more like a crate-only package that they were kind of running with or staying with that 604 crate.
Yep.
And right now they're kind of looking at the rules as a whole just because of the Rattler and everything else, right? So
right.
Rules very early in the new year, they should have a rule package finalized, and that'll be on our website. And then we're going to hit the ground running here first of January and really start promoting this event and trying to get some more key people from other tracks.
Oh yeah, and that's the key, right? You got to be early. You got to get the word out. You've already got the Bridge City 200 announced. I'm sorry, but did you just say the date of it, or is it movable?
Yeah, no, August 12th. August 12th, 2023 is when we're going.
Okay. Lots of camping available for that weekend. Anybody that's coming across the country, is it camping
we have
available?
Some camping available. Obviously, our parking lot is kind of. We have a nice facility, a great track, but our parking lot is kind of smaller than it should be. So
right.
We do have some camping, and we have camping available nearby.
Yeah, there you go. And call, right? If this is your intention, you're going to go and you need to camp or you want to camp, make sure you call and get a hold of Neil and he can set you up as long as space provides. So you may want to call early, more so than late.
The sooner the better.
Yeah. So champions this year at Sutherland Automotive Speedway. Did I read where our number 12 car was the champ? Did Matt get it?
Mr. Shirley, yeah. Matt Shirley had quite a phenomenal season this year, if you think about it. With all his jumping around, he was able to go out to the Rattler and take part in that. So I'm not sure if that helped him this year, but that whole pro late model division this year was so tight. Like going into the last event, once again, they were fighting over points, and he came out on top, which was great.
Oh, amazing. I watched him at the Rattler. I did speak with him just before he got into his Pinty's car. We had him on the radio show, and good on him. He had a good run. He had a good run all the way around. And that's the thing with that racetrack that you guys have got there. If you get good on that speedway, man, you can be good pretty well anywhere in this country.
I race down at the Bull Ring in Vegas every now and then, and we make a small change on our car. Basically, we take a chip out on our sportsman car, a 6300 chip, and we throw a 6500 chip, and no setup difference whatsoever. We just go out and race it.
Just go. Yeah. That's the way to do it. And
plus, we also had like our points fund this year for our pro late models was $10,000. So we had a $10,000 point fund, based out for our division. So we saw a few more cars than we normally would have. They came out of the woodwork, and we're looking at if we can get a little bit more sponsor dollars. We'll up it a little bit more, right? But
sure.
That's our goal, is to stay what we got.
Perfect. So meeting dates. When have you got laid out for meeting dates, or are they announced yet?
As far as like our rules and everything else,
rules,
like that,
drivers meeting, and then final schedule coming out.
They're looking, actually, I think third week in November is when we're looking at having all our division meetings. Nice. And then we just voted in our new executive here, so that just all got passed. And the first Monday here in November that's their inaugural meeting for all the new executives. So by the time we have all our rules in place and everything, we're looking, we're December, first, second week of December. We're actually hoping at having our schedule released shortly after that.
Shortly there.
And then as well as the rules for the pro late model event, the Bird City 200. That'll be, like I said, early January.
Who's the new president? Do we have a new president? Did that change, or just the executive below?
No. Still Andy Clues is our president.
Nice.
Jeff Kozak's vice, and then Brent Olson, longtime second vice. So, the top of the ship is still there. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's the way to have it. You know what, Neil? This has been great catching up with you, bud. I really, really appreciate the time on Race Time, and I know we'll check in with you over the off season and see how things are going at Sutherland Automotive Speedway. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for all you do for racing and getting all our local tracks and everything else a chance to get out there and stand on our soapbox and start yelling what we have available for the new year. So thanks again. Thanks to all the fans for listening. And remember, just support your local racetrack, right? So
exactly. Well said, my friend. Well said. And do me a favor, say hi to Rich.
I will do that.
You want to believe it. That is Neil. Neil out in Saskatoon. Neil Schneider. And he's a racer. He's also dedicated to the Speedway and does a great job out there with everything. He's a great big guy. I met him out there when I was out there doing the RS1 Cup Series race, and what a talented bunch of people. And as mentioned, it's all volunteer ran. The whole thing. They're all volunteers. Nobody's getting paid, and the track is owned by all the racers. You can buy a share at the Speedway. It's owned by like 450 people. It's called the Saskatoon Stock Car Racing Association, and it has that Speedway. What a model. It's just amazing. We are up tight to the top of the hour. Got to throw it back to the guys in Toronto to get you up to date on any news and highlights that you may have missed in hour number 1. And then we're coming back for hour number 2. And Alex Tagliani is going to be up first. He raced in Mexico today. Fingers crossed we get tags on the other side of this short 90-second break. Stay with us. Back to you guys in Toronto. Get us up to date, will you?
You're listening to Canada Talks on SiriusXM Channel 167.
RaceTime Radio is brought to you by the Quality Inn, Halifax Airport, the official stay of the RaceTime Radio broadcast crew. Also by APX Racewear, the motorsports leader in custom crew apparel and fire suits. Also by the Wooden Door Bistro.
Now Chase Elliott, he gets turned into the outside wall. Holy cow!
The thrill of the race.
He's way sideways.
Definitely sliding into it, out of control.
Unbelievable how quickly things can change in racing.
You just never know how it's going to play out.
Insider access to the drivers.
We'll roll with it. We're enjoying it. We'll collect as many trophies as we can.
All right, let's go finish this thing, baby.
It's the new normal. Better figure it out.
SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90.
Thank you. You are the man.
We're back with hour number 2 of RaceTime Radio. With the two Joes here on RaceTime Radio on SiriusXM 167, where Canada talks.
And welcome back, everyone, to Race Time Radio. Not the two Joes tonight, oh no. Only the old guy here in the studio. The young one is down there watching Kevin Hart in Toronto. Can you imagine? He took a night off after spotting for like 70 teams over the course of the summer, and now he's down there watching Kevin Hart. Having a blast, I would hope. But we are live on Race Time on SiriusXM Channel 167, Canada Talks. And don't forget to check out our new YouTube channel, RaceTimeRadioTV. Check it out. We do the show live on there and on RaceTimeRadio.com, PerformanceMotorsportNetwork.com. Also re-airs Racetime Radio 3 times throughout the course of the week, and we want to thank them for doing that. Let's get back to the hotline, shall we? This next guest always, and I repeat, always does Canada proud. He did it again this weekend. He ran the Freightliner, I think it was Freightliner, Legends race in Mexico. The Mexico GP. Alex Tagliani, our own, was down there, and he almost won himself a race. He joins us on the hotline. What's going on, Tags? How are you, buddy?
Hey, how are you, everyone?
Doing fantastic, man. Congratulations on a good run in Mexico. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, the entire weekend, I have to say, was really amazing because, it was put together by the promoter of the Formula One Grand Prix of Mexico and Michel Jourdain, IndyCar driver. He runs the Super Copa series here, and he's the distributor of Hoosier tires for NASCAR Mexico and for that series. So, they decided to put a concept together where, a bunch of guys from IndyCar would come back and race as a support race during the F1 Grand Prix. And I tell you, it was... I was overwhelmed. I was not expecting that. The last time I saw such a electric atmosphere at a racetrack was Indianapolis 500, and it was amazing. So that was a lot of fun. The race, obviously with all those guys, big names in the sport, in IndyCar, and seeing them. We really enjoy ourselves here and really got a good time. First of all, it was such a long time we didn't see each other, so that was a blast. And learning about this series, I really think that I learned a lot of things that I can bring back to NASCAR Canada, and hope that we can improve our series, improve our sport. I mean. We always learn, but the car were absolutely amazing to drive, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I was always and always very proud to see the Canadian flag on an F1 podium in the middle of a stadium, packed with 100,000 people. It was it was cool.
Pretty wild, Tags. You always represent us well, but to see guys like Max Pappas, I believe, was in that race. I seen you with Paul Tracy. I seen a photo with you and Paul Tracy, and we got to send our condolences. I believe Paul lost his dad, I believe, just a week or so ago. So our thoughts out to Paul Tracy for sure. But it was great seeing some of the photos, and, I took a look at Max Pappas. I couldn't believe he was going to get back into a car. How did he do? Who won the race?
So Michel Jourdain won the race. And I finished second. I drove back to him. It was going to be a tight race, but just a bit too short. We were matched with with another driver, so everyone was matched with another driver, and so I was going to start the race the way my co-driver was finishing his race on Saturday. So my co-driver was doing a good race, but then he had a penalty, and then he had fun fighting with another driver. So I finished, I think, ninth So we started ninth, and it was a good fight. I had to work quite hard to get to Michel. Michel, I think, and so by the time I got to him in the last lap, I think I picked up a back marker in the fast chicane in the back, and I was 0.8 of a second behind him, and I went back to 1.9 seconds behind him, and I finished 1.1 seconds. So
wow,
just just at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I think the way we finished, it was proper. It was he worked so hard for putting this race together, and I was glad to see him enjoy the win. And then he said that I pushed him pretty hard and he had nothing left at the end. I had nothing left. I pushed so hard to pass people. I mean, we ran a 1:51.7. The second fastest lap was Michel at a 1:52.1. So we were 4 tenths quicker than him, but I did all those qualifiers so soon that when I got to him, I was able to follow, but I didn't have anything left in the tires to give it a go. So it was a good finish. I think he deserved it because he put so much effort, and I would like to see this concept being replicated elsewhere. Maybe at GP3R, maybe at Indianapolis, and doing like a triple crown of this type of format. I know that we spoke with Dominic at GP3R already. We've seen before, those guys have worked hard to bring the FIA Rallycross Championship as a second race during the 2 weeks of racing in Three Rivers. So maybe that should be a concept that will be pleasing the fans. I don't know. There's more to talk, but like I said, I learned a lot about the series, the car, the build, what they run, for brakes, for shocks, for all that stuff, and for motors. There's so much I would like to say to the folks at NASCAR in Canada I think to improve our sport and our financials and everything. It's just it's out there, right? It's out there for us to grab. We just have to discuss about it and try to see if it's a possibility to take the best of what's out there and implemented it into our series.
Yeah, and using those same NASCAR Pinty's cars that you guys used, like they're an amazing race machine. Were the Mexico cars just a little bit different, Alex? Were they what type of differences were they inside the car? Did it feel like it?
Yeah, so the chassis is a TA2 chassis. Obviously, it's built by someone in the U.S., the same builder that built TA2 chassis for Trans Am series. The motor is an LS3 motor with a restrictor on it. So I think the car lacks a little bit of horsepower, but obviously you can remove the restrictor to give it a little bit of more grunt. Mm-hmm. But obviously the braking system is just out of this world. The shocks are really not expensive, but they're proper racing shocks. It makes the platform and the car just amazing to drive. And they're running Hoosier here. It's the same as us. The General Tire is the company, but they're running a Bike Life tire on an 18-inch rim. We're running on a 15-inch. So, they're already going towards where, Cup went. The shifting is paddle shift, 6-speed box, very reliable. It has everything you need. It's just, it feels a lot like a NASCAR car because the chassis, it's a tubular chassis and it's built, with the mentality of NASCAR and Trans Am, but I just think the components around are making it quite nice. It's a Formula One racetrack, and we were not missing any horsepower, even though probably on the dyno that engine configuration would have a lot less horsepower than our engine. But
right.
we were I mean, we were all in the straightaway, and that's the Formula One racetrack. So, and we don't have these type of tracks in NASCAR Canada. The biggest track we have with the longest straightaway is Motorsports. So, yeah, I just think there's a lot to learn, and it's a very affordable series, way more affordable than us, and with much bigger technology in the cars. So there's some thinking for sure there. I mean, I'm glad I did it, and maybe this is going to open discussions for always trying to improve, our series, because that's my focus, right? I mean, I just want to try to improve NASCAR Canada because that's where I am. But listen, at the end of the day, I left the track today, and I've got 2 offers to run full-time here from two teams. So, yeah, it was.
No.
Now it's who knows?
No,
right?
No. You're
crazy.
stopping right there. You're not running in Mexico full-time next year. We need you in Canada.
No, listen. I'm committed to NASCAR Canada. Obviously, I'm working with tremendous sponsors for a long time, and I've been with the 22 racing team also for a long time, and we've been very close to championship, too many times, and now with my association with Quick Wick and the tag 4-pack edition in all the Rona store, it's just so many good things that just started in 2022. We're not about to leave all that behind, but
kind of nice to get the offers, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I see it's a big market here. I mean, the population is heavy, and the series is growing. They're doing a fantastic job, and the cars are good. I mean, they're running with Mercedes body, but I would not be surprised if in the future you see different manufacturers' bodies, joining up. And to me, what's really interesting is that they're gonna do the body no matter what, and they're gonna let the team decide which body they want to run. Something that NASCAR should also consider on our side. I mean, someone should build the body, and 4, 5, 6 different manufacturers, and each and every team has a choice, to start the season with whatever they want, to open up the opportunity to knock at some dealer's door and get some money, right? That's always the hard thing. So, yeah, I was here. I enjoyed my time racing, but at the same time, I was sneaking around and always trying to learn, what other people do better and what other people do worse, right? To always try to stay at the top.
Well, they could have created a monster, Alex, sending you to Mexico, having a good time. But you know what? That's where research, development, and all that stuff comes from. Kind of cool. You finished second today in what was a dynamite race. Did that one air live somewhere, or is it going to come up? Do you know, Alex?
Yeah, it was on Fox Sport here. I mean, the rights belong to Fox in Mexico, and they also have the rights to the Formula One here. So they only air that race live here, but I'm sure it's going to come out at some point, and we'll be able to share it with all our Canadian fans. It was definitely a fun race. I mean, we were here, as fast, IndyCar drivers and racers and try to have fun. But at the end of the day, we're all racers. So when the green flag drops, I mean, we were pushing. I mean, Casey Mears, a lot of experience in NASCAR, and he was on the pole with his co-driver qualifying on the pole. Paul was fourth. There was a lot of quick drivers out there and some regulars as well, right? I mean, Mario Dominguez, Michel Jourdain are regulars here. Luis Diaz, that was second for a long time in the race. They all have their own cars and they race regularly in that series. So it was not easy, but we had some amazing fights on track, and I can't wait to see the replay.
Yeah, me neither. I'll be watching. You can guarantee it, Alex. Question now for you that we've got this taken care of. You're coming home. You're a busy guy when you get home. I see you started a new podcast, new broadcast that is going to help as well. Tell us about that.
I missed the last part. Sorry, buddy.
Oh, that's okay. I was playing with the board. I probably turned something the wrong way. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Okay. You are going to be a busy guy when you get home. You've got stuff going on. You got new broadcasts that you're doing. Can you tell us about it?
Well, I'm working on something, but it's not for right now. I'm leaving Mexico City tomorrow morning.
Right.
I'm arriving home, in the afternoon, and then the next day I fly right away to Daytona. I have a test in GT3. So we have a week test there with the BMW M4 GT3, and in preparation of the 24 hours. So just enough time, 12 hours to do some laundry and wash the suits and get the bags ready and just jump on a plane again. So that's gonna get me another week away from home.
Right.
I'm sure that from 3 p.m. that I land to when Eva's gonna go out for Halloween, I'm gonna try to also come home and pass on some candies and some tag on the go cookies for the kids at home, and she expects me to join the family and to be like vampire family. So my costume is waiting for me there, and as soon as she's in bed, I'm just gonna repack my luggage and get ready to leave.
Yeah, she'll wake up and the big vampire will be gone. He'll be gone down to Daytona to run again.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's 2 weeks of cool racing, very busy. I think it's going to slow down after that, and then we'll be on some other projects.
Well, then it'll be Christmas. By the time you get back and finished up, you'll be, the tree will be up, and it'll be just about time to celebrate Christmas. And is it safe to say, Alex, that you're going to be NASCAR Pinties next year, full-time again?
Listen, I mean, you know me for a long time. I just, I don't like to make announcements until everything is set and done.
Right.
But I can say that we are working extremely hard on some projects on the technical side,
right,
and on the commercial side. So, I mean, the plan is to be back and run full time, and so there's a lot of talks, happening as we speak to create something, bigger, stronger, better,
mm-hmm.
And there's already things in motion, I can say.
Good.
So I'm excited about that, and I think it's going to bring something new, right, to my program, and I think we're going to benefit from it, on performance and speed and all that. So that's already going. I can tell you that much, and there's more to come. So, but like I said, until everything is fully firmed up, I would like to just keep things close to my chest and wait until everything is set in stone.
Well, nothing wrong with that, Alex Tagliani. That's why you're a professional. I just thought I'd ask. Maybe it was done, but I know you're going to be a busy guy in 2023. I can guarantee it. But coming off a second-place finish today in Mexico, or not today, that was yesterday, right?
No, it actually was this afternoon. I just walked out of the track and got back to the hotel. It's, it's crazy here. I can tell you. There's they did a fantastic job to promote the race, and everything they've done from outside to inside the paddock, the fan zone, and I mean, they, it's crazy, like how many years I've been in racing and still, kind of be amazed of what people can come up with ideas. And I really like to learn about all these things because it just opens up my mind and I think when you learn from other people's idea, I think it could just improve your stuff as well. So I'm very glad that I came here and I saw all this.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Good guy to send down there, I'll tell you that. Canada's going to profit by it. We'll have a bunch of new ideas. Alex, you got to thank you for your time tonight on Race Time Radio. As always, we appreciate it wholeheartedly. I know the listenership loves hearing from you. And congratulations on a podium finish today in Mexico, buddy.
Thank you, and thanks to all your fans.
You betcha. That is Alex Tagliani. Second place today on the podium, much less, in Mexico. You heard him. He's not going to be down there very long. He's going to be back home tomorrow. Got to do Halloween with his little girl. And then off to Daytona and get the stuff ready to go for the 24 hours of Daytona. Tags will be teamed up with a bunch of good guys. You can guarantee it. We're going to hit this break, and we're hopefully going to get Trevor Seibert on the other side of it. Stay around. We will be back.
She was a girl in a short dress. I was a boy in a charcoal vest. When the winter wind came calling, that engine like a stalling. I was the one who kept waiting.
From coast to coast, you're listening to Canada Talks.
Canadian sports trivia. Here's Joe Thistle.
November 24th, 2019, the 107th Grey Cup in Calgary, and Winnipeg's 33-12 defeat of the Hamilton Tiger Cats signaled the end of one of the longest droughts in CFL history. It was the Blue Bombers' first championship since 1990, and for running back Andrew Harris, it was doubly historic as he was named Most Valuable Player and Most Valuable Canadian, a first in Grey Cup lore.
Canadian sports trivia.
Even though Napa is a nationally known name, nearly all of our stores are built from the ground up by local owners and families. People you might call neighbors will be here, there, and everywhere. Doing what neighbors do to keep their communities moving forward. You stop by a Napa Auto Parts store, you can count on Napa know-how.
Tonight's Race Time Radio is brought to you by Napa Auto Parts Stores, New Glasgow, Antigonish, and Port Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia. You can count on Napa know-how. AP Race Fuels, the worldwide leader in race fuel technology. APX Racewear. Look, feel, be epic at epicracewear.ca.
Now, a flashback in Canadian music history. Here's Eric Alper.
Rush holds a special place in our hearts and in the record books. They've sold more than 40 million copies around the world. They have a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Officers of the Order of Canada. And they've released 24 gold records and 14 platinum albums, placing them 5th for the most consecutive gold or platinum studio albums by any rock band.
From the high banks of Daytona, we cover it all. Ooh, that's going to leave a mark. And now, back to the Joes.
Hey, shake and bake, Cal! Woo! Shake and bake!
Here on Race Time Radio.
And welcome back, everybody, live tonight on SiriusXM Channel 167 Canada Talks. We are live on RaceTimeRadio.com. And how about live on our YouTube channel? Just type in RaceTimeRadioTV, and you can pop right into the studio here. If we got a little bit of time here, I'm about 15 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes ahead of getting Trevor Seibert on this show to talk about the changes at Penticton Speedway. So I've actually got some time. I haven't got Joe here to talk to. Sue's all the way in the control room. So if you would like to call in, if you got, did you happen to see the end of that NASCAR race today? How about the end of yesterday's Xfinity race? That was exciting as well. A lot of fans were doing a lot of booing at the end of the Xfinity race. But if you got some thoughts on that, you want to call us in, you can do that. We got a little opening right now. The phone number is 519-371-7588. 371-7588. Or if we're friends on Facebook, you could always video call us, video call in, and we'll actually be able to see you when you do it. We could do that way, too. So there's two different ways. But the end of the NASCAR race today was, right off the charts. If you didn't see what Ross Chastain did today, the 95 won the race. And we got to congratulate Christopher Bell. He was on the outside looking in. He was the guy, I want to say he was 49 points out. So he didn't have. The only chance Christopher Bell had to make the big stage was to win the race today. That's what he had to do. And there was 25 laps left to go and a caution come out. So Christopher Bell, his crew chief, said, look, if one or two or maybe even three guys start coming down pit road, you're coming down, and we're going to put 4 tires on your car. The 14 cars stayed out on old rubber. The 41 cars stayed out on old rubber, doing the track position, because it's pretty hard. Track position was everything today. Christopher Bell came down and he picked up 4. Denny Hamlin grabbed 4 tires. Quite a few guys in that line. I do believe Ryan even picked up in the 12 car. I think he picked up 4 tires. Went back on the track, and they dropped the green flag. Well, the 14 car and the 41 car on old tires were doing fantastic. And I thought, wow, new tires aren't going to do it. The new tire guys, they're not coming. They were a little bit, but they weren't coming. And it was, 10, 15 to go? Well, you should have seen the guy with the 4 skins come then. They started moving through the field. Christopher Bell was running the leader down, caught the leader, and got by him. 5 to go, then 2 to go, then white flag. Christopher Bell's going to win this race, hands down. He wins the race. Ross Chastain is out of the championship by 2 points. That's 2 cars. Denny Hamlin had made his way up. I want to say he was second or third. He was second or third. Anyway, Ross Chastain going in to turn number 3. It came into his mind, I guess, and he thought, I'm going to rim ride this track. And he put the car, the right side of the car, right against the wall. And he put his foot to the floor. And I'm telling you what, you got to see this. If it isn't on every highlight reel, on every newscast in the country, I don't know what sport, I don't know what NASCAR's got to do to infiltrate and get on every sports broadcast. But I'll tell you, it was the wildest move I have ever seen in my 30 years following the sport. Never, ever seen anything like that. With Chastain, he put it right up against the fence and did like a video game. He just put his foot right to the floor. He said he reached down and grabbed 5th gear and just put his foot right to the floor, and he was right to the chip. He come off turn 4, and you got to remember there's a little gate there where the cars cross, and surprisingly, he didn't hit that gate. The car, I don't know whether he steered it by it. I can't see how he could, because the car was glued to the fence. But the amount of speed, someone said near the end of the broadcast that Ross Chastain picked up 2.5 seconds just in that short distance. But when you see the car, it looks like it was coming like a bullet. And he passed Denny at the line. I'm going to say by a fender. That's about it. Surprised everybody. Everybody on the property, everyone on the broadcast. And my jaw hit the table. I couldn't believe it. Ross Chastain, he's the real deal, that guy. He's had a great year. Think about it. 2 years ago, he mentioned it in an interview I seen. 2 years ago, Ross Chastain was at the Southern 500. And he was there with Spire Motorsports. They were begging to try and get a change of tires. It was shoestring like you'd never believe. They shouldn't have been there, but Ross Chastain did. And, man, did he do a job. He did a job today. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I'm on the loving side. It was amazing to watch, to see. Unbelievable. Couldn't believe my eyes. But we have got Trevor Seibert on the hotline. He's been a busy guy working at Penticton Speedway. You can see it right here. Yeah. And the RS1 Cup Series right there. He's been a busy guy. They had a little bump going into one of the turns, and I know Trevor said, that's got to go. And he joins us now on the hotline. What's going on tonight there, Trevor Seibert? How are you?
Hey, nice to hear from you again, Joe. I was going to say I was taking a day off, but that would be a lie because I flew to Vancouver after working on the Speedway yesterday and had a meeting with a bunch of the guys on a bunch of future projects that we're doing. And so, yeah, I spent the day looking at that.
So much for an off season, right? There goes your off season. You're gonna fill it up doing stuff.
Well, you know, that whole thing with the bump in turn one at Penticton Speedway there. We've been talking about it all summer, and it's been interesting because a lot of guys say don't take it out. It adds character to the track, and you know, I was probably solidly in that same camp, you know. And if you can get a car to work through those bumps like Riley and I did at the Rattler, we had our cars working pretty good through those, and a few other guys managed to get their cars working pretty good there. You don't want it to go away. You feel like it's an advantage, but the reality of it is we're building a modern racetrack, or rebuilding a track to turn into a modern racetrack, and we just can't have that out there. So I had the grinder out there for about 5 minutes. I was telling everybody before I realized that it was definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was. It was, Trev. Watching the 300. Now, what a race. Man, I'll tell you what. That race was probably, for me, that was the short track race of the year. And that's saying a lot because I've seen a lot of short track races this year. That one there took the cake. 2 hours, 59 minutes, 300 laps with a break in the middle. You want drama? We had drama. The battle for the last chance, the Baker's Dozen. The guy leading the race, going to transfer into the big show on Friday night, going down the back stretch, happens to bobble just a bit, and Mark Barrio ended up on his lid, sliding up the track on his lid, trying to win that race. And, you know, it just set the tone for the whole thing. And watching the 300, we had everything. Riley went into the pits. And the rule was you got to wait for the horn. You wait for the horn before the team attacks the car to give you what you want. Riley pulled in, and one of the crew members didn't listen in the meeting and went over and started touching the car. Now, he didn't do anything, but he touched the car. And in the driver's meeting, Trevor, that was not only running the race, but he was, directing as well. He said nobody touches the car. And who's out his windshield? But Riley. Riley's out his windshield. And he said to his crew, you better tell those guys, Riley's got a penalty. He's going to be going to the rear. And Riley was the leader of the 300. You got to know, he worked his ass off getting to the front of the field. There was no slouches in that field. It was a hard go, Trev, to make it back to the front. But what a show.
Well, it was... You know, it was. I know Riley was pretty upset about it just because they messed it up, but it didn't bother me quite as much. I was more embarrassed than anything else because both of us got put to the back, and I was the guy who wrote the rule. And I was pretty adamant at the drivers' meeting. I mean, I wasn't the competition director, but some of the guys were wondering about it, and we were pretty sure to make sure that everybody got it. They couldn't touch the car until the horn went off. Everybody got the same opportunity to get in and get squared up in the pit because their pit lane is pretty small. And I was sitting in my car taking a break, and I could hear all the screaming and hollering and people pointing at Riley's car. And I was like, what the heck are they screaming about over there? And then I realized that what was going on, and I got on the radio and I talked to Jeff Walt, our crew chief, was crew chief on both cars, and I said, hey, did we touch my car too? Because of course I wasn't up on the jack or anything yet, so I didn't know if they're touching. He says, well, I don't know if the guys touched it or not. And I said, well, that's all I need to know. I'm going to the back with Riley, and said, well, I don't think we need to. I said, no, we're going to the back. There's no discussion. I can't be the promoter and the guy who writes the rule and then forget about the bloody rule and be the only two guys that had the infraction and not go to the back. I said, I'll never hear the end of it. So both of us went to the back, if you recall, and of course left everybody wondering what the heck was going on because the fans had no idea why him and I came into the break in position 1 and 2, and then came back out and we were dead last, and that confused a lot of people.
Oh, it confused me, I'll tell you. I was calling the race along with Cole Sorensen, and we had Brad Mann there from New Brunswick. Brad was down in the center. We all knew that it was 0969 going in 1-2. And when it come back out, and 09 and 69 were at the rear. I mean, what the hell's going on? How come those guys are there? We got the message finally and went, oh, that makes sense if they got on the cars early. But that just shows you there was no bias in this race. None. I can guarantee you that. And what a show did we end up with. Man, oh man, it was something else. And there was good racing all year, really, at Penticton Speedway. I heard lots over the course of the summer. It all shook out fairly well, did it, for you, Trev?
You know, I think it was a big success all in all. You know, we came out of COVID, everybody did, with all these tracks not being able to run events and not being able to put people in grandstands. It was our first season of owning the track where we were actually able to sell tickets to anybody. More than, I think it was 50 people we were allowed last year, which was ridiculous. So it was a big success from that standpoint. And we got a lot of new fans. You know, you're going to get the low line crew. You're going to get the hardcore race fan that will come to just about anything, and that's you know, we certainly appreciate that. But what we need to do in our sport is introduce it to new people all the time. And one of the things that we really focused on was our marketing and trying to get new people out to the track, and maybe get some people that hadn't been to the track in a lot of years. And we did. We got a lot of that. We got a lot of people coming up, you know, giving us compliments, which, you know, some days you work your ass off. You just wonder if you're getting anywhere. And it's when people come and compliment you on what's going on with the improvements of the track, with what's going on, you know, the direction you're taking, the fact that, you know, you're really putting a lot of time and effort, money into things for the fans, trying to do interaction with the fans. You know, you knew you're doing the right things, and we've got a whole bucket list of things that we have left to do, you know, going forward. But we've got good bones there now. You know, with most of our capital expenditures on the facility itself, as far as the track itself goes, most of them are behind us. You know, and then smaller projects like the one we did here over the weekend, where we took those bumps out of turn 1 and 2, and it's going to completely change that racetrack as well. And you saw yourself that when we rebuilt turn 3, 4, that was a complete redesign that I did after we bought the track. Totally tore it out and put progressive banking in there, and right up to 16.5 degrees on the outside groove, and it promoted side-by-side racing, which is what I wanted to do, because that track historically, like many short tracks, it's just, you know, they're so short and not much banking, you can't help but be single lane. And so it's a bump and run everywhere you go. And that's never been my style. You know, it's you do it when you have to, but I don't think it promotes great racing, because you end up having a lot of wrecks, a lot of yellow flags. It takes a lot of the fluidity out of the event. You know, you look at our event, you already mentioned at the time that we started, right from driver introductions to the time we took the checkered flag for a 300-lap race was pretty darn good. We didn't have that many yellows when it came right down to it. You know, the guys did a hell of a job racing side by side. And the improvements that we're doing in turn 1 and 2 now are really going to help that as well. You know, the jury's out a little bit. I was a little bit worried that we'd turn it back into a one-lane track at that end again, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's simply because, you know, the outside groove in turn 3 and 4 is, I don't know, it's kind of where I like to be anyway. So if you happen to be outside in turn 1, 2, even if you just stay with somebody there, you're going to be in pretty good shape when you get to the other end. And so that makes it a 2-lane track. And now that we've taken the bump out, the way it used to be, you'd either try and drive below it and hug the wall on the inside, or you'd try and drive above it.
Right.
And lots of times you couldn't because of the traffic, and you'd hit that bump at the worst possible time, and maybe wash up the track and take the guy on the outside of you and give him a nice shot at the door, and lots of times that just turned into a melee. So it's going to promote better racing. It's going to promote safer racing, and it's going to promote not having so many yellows and just keep the race going. Nobody really cares to watch yellow flags. So if we can run 300-lap race out there and maybe only have 5 or 6 yellows all night, I mean, that's what I'm aiming for.
Oh, yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. No one wants to go sit there and watch caution laps all the way around. It drives you nuts. I know I read some of the posts when I seen the work going on at Penticton, and the sprint car guys absolutely love it. They said, "Man, is that going to change our racing? It's really going to improve it." Did you grind that bump out and then repave over top of that, Trev?
Yeah. So what we did is we, that track's kind of interesting. It was built in 1969, and they've done various different paving jobs along the way. I can't profess to say I know of any of them. I mean, it was pretty old when they built it, right? So, but you find out as you do improvements. So when I took 3/4 of the wall down in that place, you get to see what was there for the outside of the track. And in some places it was only an inch thick, and other places it was a foot thick. For whatever reason over the years, probably different improvements, or maybe they had some soft spots or different things. So when you run a grinder on a track, you run the risk of penetrating through the surface of the asphalt and getting down into what we call the base, which is your gravel.
Right.
And so we actually did penetrate through in a couple spots. It was no big deal. We get down into the gravel and the sand. A lot of that track is built straight on the natural sand that's there. But the grinder that we use it has a set of what are called sonics, and it reads the ground. So you put one out in front of the grinder and one behind it, and it basically uses those signals to average out the distance between the two sonics, and it works a bit like a grader.
Yeah.
And so it'll take your high spots and your low spots off. But when you consider that a track that has 8 or 9 degrees banking in it, and it's turning and fairly sharp too, a small radius track like that, it's like trying to grind the inside of a salad bowl or something like that. So, you get all kinds of wild compound curves going on in there. But it turned out really well, and so in some places we took maybe, let's say, an inch, in other places there'd be 3 inches, depending on what you had for a bump and what it took off. And so that profiled the track pretty well. And then whatever was left over that the grinder didn't take out, the paver theoretically should take out the rest. And so how do I put this? I guess if there's still any kind of significant bumps in there, then it's probably my screw up at that point, and I'll have to take responsibility for it. But I'll just say that I guess my excuse will be if there's still a bump in that track, I'll just say I'm trying to appease everybody, the people that want to go, and people still want one, so I paid one back into it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of popcorn under there, guys. We did it just for the fans. But quick story, I got a quick one for you. Repaving Sauble Speedway back in 1997, I think it was. Get the whole EC King crew in there, and there's a lot of guys, and they got truckloads of asphalt ready to go, and the day before comes, and they send out that grinding unit. It was all the way out in Nova Scotia. They brought it all the way from Nova Scotia to Sauble Speedway. It's got those automatic levelers and their eyes that sort of point down at the surface. Well, my dad was still alive back then, and he said, "Joe, you got a lot of guys here." He said, "Should I run down to Tim Hortons and get everybody coffee?" I said, "Yeah, Dad, that'd be a great idea. Here's some money. Grab coffees for everybody and grab a bunch of donuts." So that's what he did. He was gone, 10, 15 minutes, and shows back up, and it was my job to go around to the crews that were out grinding the track and getting ready and doing their thing. I handed him a coffee, the guy that was operating the machine. Well, I said, "You want a donut?" So he went to set the coffee down. He put it down on the step where he would step onto the unit, and he went to dig into the donut box, and all of a sudden, the grinder went just right up on its side, and it started grinding like huge. It was really throwing stuff. And he automatically hit the kill switch on the thing, and it stopped. And he said, I don't know what the hell's going on with this machine, but look at the grinding disc, and it was really going. And the big boss, his boss, showed up, and he goes, whose coffee is that? And the operator said, it's mine. You want? Tucker went and got a whole bunch. You want one? He goes, no, I want you to lift it off where you got it sitting. He took his coffee back in the machine and went, shh, and leveled right out again. He goes, there's eyes on this. That's how it's doing it. Don't put anything here. So that's what happened at Sauble Speedway. So I get it when you say it, it's grinding along and all of a sudden it starts taking more. Sometimes those eyes will be picking stuff up, right? That was such a long story, I lost them.
Well, it's interesting because we have the same sonic eyes on the paver too. So Riley runs the paver and I do all the rolling, and then of course you have a bunch of other guys helping out. But his job when we do this stuff, and it was the same when we did the renovations in turn 3-4. But he looks after the paving, and I look after rolling it because they're both pretty important how you go about it. And again, no one left to blame. I guess if you do it wrong, you blame yourself, and you're the guy that's got a race on it. But the eyes, like, so when we were using the paver, the eyes are following what the grinder left behind, and I've got a few pictures of it. But in some places, we encountered places that were paved multiple times over, and so let's say go down 2 inches, and there's a half an inch of a layer of that same layer left on top of the other one. Well, it peels off. You take the sweeper and you go to sweep all the grindings off, and it starts peeling some of that layer off, which is not the end of the world. But when the eyes go over it, they start reading different depths because every time there's a little divot or something that's peeled up, the eyes, probably like your coffee cup, it's wondering what's going on.
Right.
So there's a bit of a hybrid between having the eyes working on there and then having to use your own eyes to see what's going on. And for those that don't know how a paver works, any change that you make on a paver usually takes the full length of the paver to make the change. So if you're getting too thin with your asphalt, or you're getting too heavy with your asphalt, or you're starting to pave a dip or a hump into it, and you make a change, you got to go ahead about 15 feet before anything appreciable really happens.
Right.
And so, it can get pretty Western in there when you start dialing things up the wrong way. Now you're getting too high, and now you got to go the other way, and you can really mess it up in a hurry. So I think overall we did a pretty darn good job. I know we did in turn 3-4. I thought it turned out fantastic for the amount of banking we had in that corner. This one only has about half as much banking as the other end of the track does. But when I left the tractor, it's pretty cool. When we paved it too, it's only 6 degrees when we started, which is pretty cold. So you got to work fast because you can only roll it when it's hot. Once it gets down below a certain temperature, below about 80 degrees or so, you can't. It's not very malleable anymore to move it around.
Right.
So it went down pretty darn good. But by the end of the day, I had to leave it alone. But I really wanted to hop in my pickup truck and rip a couple laps off there and see what the heck we had. But
yeah,
I didn't do that yet, and I was going to do it this morning, but then I flew to Vancouver for a meeting. So I still haven't driven around it because that's probably going to be your next question, wondering how it turned out.
Yeah. Well,
I'll probably go dig one of the Camaros, one of the Avion Camaros out of the shop when I get back, and even just a street car, and just try it out and see what the ride is like on there.
Well, Penticton is in good shape now, so even more improvements done. While I got you, Trevor, I want to ask you about RS1. How is things happening in Al Labor's shop there? How's things looking at Avion Motorsports?
Really good. So the meeting I had today, I can't say too much about it, but we've got some really, really exciting things that we're working on going forward here. And if they come to fruition the way they want, and we get the success out of them that we want, this thing is going to change motorsports again. It really will. And I can say that and being pretty bold about that statement, but I'm pretty excited about it. I've got a great team working on it, and some of the stuff that these guys are coming up with. It's sometimes you got to get out of your own way a little bit too, right? And that's what's going on. So I met with these people today to get a follow-up on where they're at with some things. I stayed out of the last meeting or two so that I didn't influence what was going on and let some other minds kind of have a say, because like I say, sometimes you can have a bit of what I call founder's disease,
right?
Where, I don't know, I guess you could just think you got all the answers. And it's incredible when you let some other people have a turn, at least to have a think tank going on and throw some stuff at you, and you go, damn, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
But it's great. So yeah, lots of great things coming up with the RS1 program for sure. You know, I think we had a really successful year there too. Lots of cars, lots of car count. 27 cars now and counting. You know, big names came into some additional big names came into the field with, you know, guys like Cameron Haley coming and running with us this year, and you know, a bunch of new names in the challenge field, that some young talent there that proved that they're going to be something to beat. Not in the challenge, they're going to move right out of that pretty quick and be running in Cup very soon. I can see it. I'm probably only a year or two away from riding around looking at their tail lights. So
Jack,
it's all the things that I'd hoped it would be, and it's growing and it's going in the right direction. Lots more things to work on. You know, I always feel like we're never doing enough, and you know, we're not, because they're never satisfied. But lots of cool things in the works.
Well, Jack Hariniak is one of the guys that I'd point at, the 01 car. He did really good in challenge. He probably won it this year. He really shined in that Cup Series too. He started to come right along.
Well, you take a guy like him who literally had, I think the story goes, he'd never been to a racetrack before before the year they bought the car. Like, I hadn't been to one to even watch one, but I think he had some time. I believe it was on a motorbike or some things like that. So he had a bit of knowledge of, you know, speed and mechanical things. And you're absolutely right. He did fantastic. You know what he needs now is he needs somebody to mentor him and take him aside and do a little bit of coaching with him, and he'll be a bullet. He'll be at the front of that Cup field in no time. He's already running both. Now that he's won the championship in challenge, our rule is once you win the championship, you have to move up. You have no choice. But he was running both because we allow the challenge drivers to run with the Cup drivers, not the other way around. And he was running easily mid-pack and often near the front on many occasions. And so the raw talent is there. You know, lots of times when he was running at the front, if he wasn't running at the front for very long, it's because he made a mistake. And lots of them were just simple mistakes. I can see because I'm running, you know, I'm watching these guys. I'm out there at the same time. And I said, we just give that guy some coaching and get him some technical advice, and you'll never catch him. So,
yeah,
again, and he is one of the young guys. Jesse Webb, another young guy. We've got some interest from a few other young drivers, you know, that are still in their teens that are going to come on board. And, yeah, they'll do very well. It's the series that we built is very competitive, but as you saw when you were out, it has a bit of an air about it that I don't feel they have the kind of pressure on that they do with a lot of other series that they could go to at the same level of competition. And I've tried to impose that so that, because I know what it was like. I used to be a 20-year-old race driver, you know, at one point in my life, and you know, you go to a race, and I'm thinking of a place like Long Beach or somewhere like that, you know, and you're just in awe of all the other drivers that are there, the setting that are there, the people that are there, and you know, movie stars everywhere you look, and you're trying to keep your head screwed on straight, you know, so you just drive the car. And you know, I always say if I had the composure back then that I have now from you know, I just don't get rattled anymore when it comes to that kind of stuff. But so I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to build this series in such a way that a lot of these young drivers, when they come to us, they don't feel that pressure, because it's a lot easier for them to excel and build their confidence when they don't feel all this outside pressure and you know, have that on them. You go to places like even the Toronto Indy or the Vancouver Indy back in the day. I mean, even it happens at Penticton Speedway. You look at Ellie Dunphy, who was our development driver running in the street stock, and I know she felt a lot of pressure when we picked her up as a development driver and got her a new car and got them all uniforms and everything else. I had to talk to her a few times and say, you know, Ellie, just take it easy. You're the same driver you were yesterday. So, you know, try not to feel the pressure. And I talked to her. I think it helped a bit, but you're never going to get it to get right off of that. But really what we're focusing on over there, is to develop a lot of these younger drivers.
Absolutely, and it's working. What a concept, what an idea. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the RS1 Cup Series, you can check all of it out at Avion Motorsports. That's avionmotorsports.com. Have a look at it. If you're a competitor, you want to get into one of these cars. It's affordable, it's incredible racing, and you're going to run on a variety of racetracks, from world-class road course at Area 27 to Penticton Speedway, and we'll have to look and see what the schedule looks like for 2023. Trev, we're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I got to make this maybe my final question to you. When will the schedules come out for both Penticton and the RS1 Cup Series? Do you got kind of a date sort of set aside?
We're hoping to have them out here in the next few weeks. The RS1 should be out in the next couple of weeks. We got to finalize some stuff. You know, we're still working with Saskatoon on the race out there, and finalizing some things with Area 27. So, but I believe in the next 2 weeks that'll be out. The Penticton Speedway one, we've got most of it put together. Everybody's going to want to know about the Western Rattler 300. Sorry, I got some sirens going by me here. But
as long as they're not for you, it's okay.
They're not for me. But the Western Rattler 300 is definitely going to go ahead, and we'll have an announcement of that coming out in the next short little while here. We're just working on a date. It'll be similar to last year's time frame. We're thinking about pushing it a week down the road, just so that we can guarantee the weather a little bit better for temperature-wise. But we also are consulting some of the tracks in the U.S. so that we're not stepping on each other's feet. I want to get a bunch of the U.S. drivers up. They wanted to come last year. Most of them didn't have their COVID shot, so they couldn't cross the border. Now they can. And so it'd be nice to have the international flavor there next year. I just want to make sure we're not scheduled on top of somebody else.
Yep.
But that'll for sure be going ahead.
Trevor?
I'll also say one last thing. I'm watching you on your YouTube channel there, Joe. You're best dressed guy in Eastern Canada right now with what you're wearing there.
Yeah, you love it. I'll tell you what, this is one of the best sweaters I own.
It looks good on you.
Well, thank you, my friend. Trevor, we will definitely get you back on. I know there's going to be lots to announce, but we'll do everything in due time. And I'll definitely keep my eyes pinned on everything that's happening with Penticton Speedway and, of course, the RS1 Cup Series. Can't thank you enough for the time tonight on Race Time.
Well, thanks a lot, Joe. I really appreciate the time you give us out here, and you know, it's been a hell of a support for the racing in Western Canada, and I think we'll be talking to you in the next short little while. We'll do some announcements, and maybe I'll jump on your show if you'll have me, and we'll go through that together.
Absolutely. Next time you're videoing. You're going to be on here video, but it's dynamite having you. Thanks so much, Trevor.
Thanks, Joe. Have a great night.
You bet. Trevor Seibert, Penticton Speedway. Guy has done an amazing job. Him, Ingo, like the whole staff. Bryce is there. There's lots. It's not just Trevor. It's lots. But he does such a good job, man. BC is a hotbed of racing. They got Agassi. They got Gold Pen. They got Soda. No, I can't think of the name. That's out towards Victoria. I know we lost one out there, but give it time. We just may get a new site for that one. We'll keep you posted on everything there. But that's going to do it for us tonight on Race Time Radio. Got to thank Susie Q in the control room for hooking us up with everybody. Got to thank the guys in Toronto for hooking us up on SiriusXM. And I got to thank absolutely all of my guests and you for tuning in to Race Time Radio. We surely do appreciate it. Each and every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern is when we hit the air. Next Sunday night, we will not be on SiriusXM. It's going to be a couple weeks. We got a bunch of CFL content. So I will leave the channel, but we will be back on SiriusXM. And have a good one, everybody. We'll catch you next week on Race Time Radio.
Thanks for listening to Race Time Radio. Visit us on the web at www.racetimeradio.com. We hope you'll join us again next time for more Race Time Radio.
Come on now, dig.
Exclusively on your home for the hardcore race fan.
Excellent, buddy, excellent.